Absolutely. So I'm a clinician myself, and so I'm kind of a rarity in capital development teams in that I'm a nurse and I came from the clinical side. So implementing the feedback of my colleagues when I first joined a capital development team was so important. To be able to listen to their feedback, to be able to incorporate it was key to the success of the projects. Examples of it would be in the early days when we're starting to put floor plans together and we talk about adjacencies. I think, the architects have some awesome ideas about where things should lay out, but until you have a clinician walk those hallways, do the patient journey, their own day-to-day experience, you aren't always aware of what needs to be beside everything. And a great example was when the Etobicoke emergency room opened back in 2019. In the first week, we had a critical aneurysm patient who came in through our through our ambulance docks, went straight to a resuscitation room, went straight to a CT scanner and into the OR within a span of 10 minutes. And the footsteps that it took those clinicians to get that patient there saved their life. So that feedback had come directly from those clinicians to say, we need things to happen quickly. They have to be side by side. We can't take an elevator ride. It is too far. So to co-locate, and especially when you're dealing with an older building and a brand new build, to try to have them fit together and have that be seamless is so important. So that's one example. A second example would be our learnings from the pandemic. We certainly heard loud and clear from the clinicians that space for them to be humans nestled in with the care that they're giving was so important. And the idea of having soft spaces that we might use for clinical was actually wrong, because soft spaces were really important. Those lounges, those change rooms, those classrooms that we needed to use, we didn't end up putting patients there, we ended up putting staff there, and we needed to use them. So that kind of feedback was so important for us. So at Osler, what we've always done is incorporated shell space, and I know many organizations do that. So in the planning of the building, we have shells located both, maybe it's an entire floor in a tall building, maybe it's just put in a corner so that we're not, we may say what we're going to do in it later, but then over time we may change our minds. And I think that's what's very important, is that when you're building shelled space or even spaces that aren't assigned, that they remain very flexible, because we may not know. The other strategy we're using is that when we're incorporating a backfill strategy, so if we know we're going to transfer services into a new build and then we're going to backfill, we don't always identify right up front what's going to go into that space, because the time period is going to be so far away. We have to build the building, transition folks out, and by the time we get to backfilling, needs may have changed, priorities may have changed, and so we want to be able to adapt to that. So that's near and dear to my heart. Again, I'm a clinician. I've actually participated in the user group side as a clinician. I remember doing that and feeling so unprepared. I had no idea what I was doing in a room. They would throw questions at us and we really didn't even understand why. So first of all, prep, and to meet them where they're at, recognizing most clinician leaders that are brought to a user group meeting for redevelopment, this is the last priority. They've got a million other things going on in their day. So understanding the value of their time, being very focused with your questions. So what we try to do is meet with our architects, get as much of the planning done as we can, and limit it down to some very focused questions so that it's a engagement for a few minutes. It's not hours and hours of time. I've also learned through the pandemic, when we're engaging folks on video conferencing, they are doing other things. So they are multitasking. And I mean, this is no disrespect. They have so many other priorities going on that you need to focus them for the things you need them for and let them go. On our teams, we incorporate clinical people on the capital development team. I'm the example. I have colleagues on my team who are also nurses and professionals, clinical professionals, and their input is so incredibly valuable. We can answer a lot of the questions, or at least propose the answers, and then validate them with the clinicians later. And so that gives us a head start, and I think it's really valuable. I feel like the biggest barrier there is that we make decisions, we get approval on a functional program, square footage is established, and then to try to change that at all is a very difficult thing. So it's a fiscal challenge, but it's also just the fact that we know what the constraints of our building are. And so as things evolve and change over the course of a project, the idea of making a room bigger or adding a room is just an impossibility. And so trying to explain that to clinicians who may not understand, well, I don't, I want this and I need this, and it's very, very important to my patient. Why can't you do this? The fact that it takes so many years to bring a project from planning to reality, we know that we're going to have many leaders who come and go. And so you might have an amazing plan that was influenced by one clinician. They're long gone by the time you open the doors, and a new clinician comes in with a brand new outlook, and they look at it and say, this is crazy, why did you do this? I want to change it. And so balancing the great ideas of others and getting some buy-in from new influencers is a challenge, something we work through on every project. I am so grateful for this forum because I was able to bring members of my team, junior members, middle members, experienced members, to come to meet their colleagues from all around the province, from the country actually, and establish networking contacts, exchange information, be educated, because one thing, there's no school to go to learn capital redevelopment. You either come from design, you come from clinical, you may come from architectural, but there's no classroom. So this is our classroom, and I really, really appreciate the opportunity to bring my team together to learn from experts in the field. And again, the networking is so valuable.